What is up, everyone? I hope you guys all had a wonderful Thursday. Uh, Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, part of another country that I have 1% viewership. Hope you guys are having a wonderful morning, wherever you may be. Didn't mean to use that because that's from Coast to Coast AM. Love that show. Rest in peace, Art Bell. Anyways, so one of my little things that's kind of quirky about me is I love when I'm watching a good movie to live in that moment. Like if I'm that not procrastinator, but if I'm that protagonist. And one of my favorite movies of all times is Wedding Crashers. And the first time John, who is it? I know it's Owen, not Luke Owen. God, I forgot his real name. But anyways, the first time he sees Claire, that magical music plays in the background. And my God, Rachel McAdams is just, yeah. So anyways, they get invited, of course. Spoiler alert, by the way, if you haven't seen it. But, of course, they find their way to get back to the house of, them of everything. And when they do, he wants to spend some alone time with Claire, who Rachel McAdams plays, and he's passed the eye drops and puts it in Zach's drink, who's the boyfriend, who's the asshole, and he's able to spend at least a little bit of alone time with her. I don't know if what I'm about to show you next in any way was it couldn't have been, especially to the extreme, but something that I thought would be like an innocent prank. I thank God I never did this to anybody. So I hope you guys enjoy what you're about to hear, because it blew my mind away.
Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, what I'm talking to you about today is this stuff. Visine, Mizine. Get the red out? Well, today it's gonna get the dead out. In this old video, I'm gonna yap away about a number of stories, some big, some small, each linked by a lovely drop of Visine. More like a tremendous squirt. That sounds, this stuff mixed with some other stuff. I mean, it's eye drops, not drops dead, but it's all the same to these characters. It's all goo, really, so let's give it just that. So first of all, I've showed this like 5 times, but check it out. I got Visine as my prop. Pretty proud of myself. Focus, bitch. What do you think? I'm trying to impress you. It's not working, is it? We have a lot of fun on this show, my friends, but right now I want to get serious. Because Visine is no joke. I, for one, really hate using it. Eyes freak me out, I simply won't have it. But, on a lighter note, let me tell you a small anecdote about one student in a high school in Fowlerville, Michigan, who obviously assumed the same about their teacher. That, eyes. So he started putting it in his teacher's coffee. Actually, wait, no, I think I got my wires crossed here.
The teacher believes this went on for several days. She first started getting sick on a Thursday and Friday, then went home, felt better over the weekend, came back and got even sicker the following week.
In May 2014, algebra teacher Mary Aldecoa started getting very ill. She had horrible stomach pains and headaches and was out of commission for a time. Then, a rumor went around that, over a 5-day period, one of the students had been dripping Visine into her coffee, the coffee she had left on her table in class. This all came out. Mary, she did make a full recovery, and the student was suspended for a year. Great job!
But I have no doubt that he just saw it as a harmless prank. And it's not. It could kill people.
But she got off very lightly compared to some of the other stories I'm going to tell you about. Visine and other eye drops contain a chemical called tetrahydrozoline. It's not meant to go in the gob, right? Because if it does, it gets you really fucked up. And not in a good way. It's pretty toxic. If you take enough of it, it will shut down your central nervous system. And then shut you down. There's a couple of stories I want to look at in this old video. All had eye problems, as in, I am in trouble. So that means more than one, but let's begin with just that in a story that takes us to mystical South Carolina. York County be the place that we, be, to begin. And let me begin, by the way, by saying that we have been there before with the story, if you remember, of Melvin Roberts. No spoilers, but the woman he was married to was gas, and not in a good way. So, in uppity South Carolina lies the county of York. There's a wily old lake named Lake Wiley, and that is where the Claytons lived. The Claytons being Stephen and his wife, Lana. And it was there that in July 2018, the police entered their house on Island Forks Road. Stephen was lying at the bottom of the stairs.
On my friend is Clayton, maybe because of my position again. So she said she left in that state. Okay.
Pretty soon the police started knocking around the house, and what was initially assumed to have been some kind of heart attack, you know, like the regular kind, that theory was soon usurped by Lana's actions. Or rather, lack of them. Steve and Lana had been married for 5 years by the time 2018 rolled around. And now it was no more. Steve Clayton was born in 1954, growing up with 3 sisters in South Florida. Here is Steve Clayton walking one of his sisters down the aisle. He graduated Florida State University in 1976 with one of them finance degrees and went to start a business, a beeswax. Physical Therapy Resources was the name of the game, with therapy centers across America. It was big, he made a few schcarol, and he eventually sold his half of it and went on to become a full-on rape philanthropist. That's the one, at age 41. He became rich and successful at a relatively young age. And what did he want to do with it? Pay it forward by giving it back to the new up-and-comers.
That's awesome.
He was a decent guy who wasn't satisfied with his own success. He wanted others to succeed too. He helped young, entrepreneurs with advice, with his resources, any strings he could pull, he would pull on the darn threads. He wouldn't yuck their yums, he was happy to support. And he was a fun guy to be around. Or at least that's what Lana Walsh thought when they met in 2010. Stephen was 55 years old when they started dating. He had moved up from South Florida to North Carolina, and that's where he met Lana, 12 years younger than Stevie. Steve could never really find the right woman for him. He was driven, he was outgoing, and despite being the life of the party, he didn't have much luck in love. He'd been up and down the aisle a couple of times, but nothing stuck. But now his luck is about to change, and then change again. Lana was a nurse from Oklahoma, a sweet, quiet lady, unlike the gregarious Steve. But they seemed to make quite the pair, the yin to the yang. In 2013, they married, and in 2015 moved into a new home on Lake Wiley, South Carolina, into a house remodeled after George Washington's Mount Vernon estate. Look at you! Life was good, until June 2018, of course. He started getting nauseous, vertigo, generally just quite a ill feeling. Lana sent him to bed. He ended up sleeping for 2 days straight. Bollocks, he was. But 2 weeks later, he was back to his old self.
Can somebody tell me what bollocks means? I know it's a curse word in English, Old English, but I have no idea what it means.
Life at a party, dancing away with Lana at a party he hosted. A month later, though, after that party, this call came in.
Public Safety Communications, Mrs. Amber.
Yes, ma'am. I'm down at Lake Wiley, 4506 Island Forks Road. I was just riding by, and a woman came running out and said her husband fell down the steps, and she thinks he's dead. So we need an ambulance.
Okay, and so the female flagged you down, said her husband fell down the steps?
She was hysterical. I think he might be gone.
Okay, so I do have everyone coming lights and sirens. I know you don't want to bother her. Has he been sick recently?
She said he had vertigo.
Just kind of having guilt trips about not checking on him. Just take a look, see if you see any signs of him falling or anything.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Sergeant Day. I'm going to be here for just a little while until the coroner gets here.
Lana said she had seen him that morning fast asleep. Then she went out to cut the grass, and when she came back in, he was dropped dead at the bottom of the stairs.
Miss Clayton, you were outside. You were working outside.
I was mowing the lawn real quick, and when I came in, the car fell. And I tried
I'm so sorry.
I tried to put a blanket underneath him, tried to grab his face and try to go. I couldn't.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know how to make it. I don't know what he was thinking.
I think this was the day God chose.
That's what I thought. You can't blame yourself for any of this.
Oh, no, not at all.
The coroner first said it was a heart attack, but the responding officers, much like a Star Wars character, had a bad feeling about this. He had no marks on him. He hadn't fallen down the stairs. So he had made it down and then he had a heart attack? Question mark. Lana was a nurse. She hadn't tried to resuscitate Stephen. She hadn't called the emergency services. He had been bedridden. In a bed that looked like it was covered with, what's the word? Piss. If he was that bad, why didn't she take him to the hospital? She wanted him cremated pretty sharpish. One other weird thing is that 2 years before he died, Lana shot Stephen in the head with a crossbow. That's pretty ridiculous. It only grazed his noodle, but fucking hell. Like, seriously, what? She almost killed him like 2 years before? But they both would come and say, oh, hey, it's an accident. They both said it was an accident. Yeah, she hadn't meant to shoot at his head. He was asleep at the time as well, so. And Stephen had told his family that he wasn't that happy with Lana. Not at all. And after Stephen's death, Lana would say the same. That Stephen liked the illicit substances. He was a bad boy in a bad way. And after his death, she cleared his stuff out fast as hell. Like, get the fuck out of here. She would have kicked it out if she could have. She also said he had no will, when clearly he did. His family knew all about it. Stephen had been a finance guy. He would have...
You know, that's fucked up, is that people are more prone to knowing your will than actually stepping up and trying to be over there to take care of him in his time of need. Only what's pointing the fingers at, you know, the ex-wife, if she did something or not, you know, she's there taking care of him supposedly, but it doesn't really sound like it if you're laying there in your own freaking pile of, not even pile, but your own puddle of piss for God only knows how long. But yeah, when it comes down to the will, people knew. And, you know, unfortunately, I experienced the same thing when my stepfather was pretty well-to-do. And he dressed and looked like he didn't have two nickels to rub together. And I always say that. But he had this absolutely gorgeous... and I've shared this before. And here, let's see if I can share it again. And then I'll show you what happened. Because it was just all so sudden. And really, really sucked. Let's see here. Thought I would definitely... Okay, here it is. Here's one of them. So, before he passed away, he built... It was a little over 10,000 square foot cabin in Grand Lake, Colorado, with a 10 to 12 car garage. He was a car collector. Nothing like Ferraris, Lamborghinis, or anything like that. They were old classic cars. But here was the property, and you could see the surrounding area, how freaking dry. I mean, and it is dry as possibly can be. I mean, you could probably have set out a fire just by, you know, throwing a rock and it accidentally hitting another rock, and boom, there would have been a fire. But that was the cabin that he left to us, and the land. And so what had happened was, one time my niece goes out there, and it belongs to me, my brother, and my sister, not my sister-in-law. Absolutely, my sister-in-law has nothing to do with it, and she actually caused a divide in the family by thinking that she had something to do with it, saying that I had to do this, do that to earn my keep, and like my mom and everybody else was like, the fuck do you think you're talking to? You know, shit, you know, this is much, you have nothing to do with this. This isn't yours. And I think God has a way of showing us, you know, when certain people are greedy, because what had happened was my second eldest niece, she played Division I basketball. She had taken some friends out there, and when she goes to open the door, she notices that the house and the stair steps are about 2 feet apart. And so, of course, she calls my brother right away. And it's about a 2.5, 3 hour drive. So my brother drives straight up there. Come to find out, the foundation started to lean. So all these years of paying insurance, we go in and State Farm calls a contractor and they come in and they brace the foundation to keep the home from falling over. Well, I wish to God to this day that we never called, insurance, because a year later, this is what happened. And it's hard to point it out, but. And then right over here, right there, is the cabin about to get engulfed in flames. Now, Grand Lake is right over the mountain of Rocky Mountain National Park, where the Stanley Hotel is, where the infamous Stanley Hotel, where Stephen King had the inspiration to write The Shining. That was never filmed there. So even the Stanley Hotel always says it wasn't filmed here, but he stayed in the most haunted room. And for our wedding anniversary, when I was married, our honeymoon, she got a suite there right next, because, that room's booked out for like years in advance. And so didn't experience anything, didn't feel anything. And so one of Grand Lake's biggest fear is that, you have all these houses clustered, and then you have this beautiful, huge lake. I mean, just massive. And it kind of sits in a valley, and during the summer, they shoot fireworks from the middle of the lake because they can't shoot them from land, or else that's going to cause a fire in a heartbeat. And so that was one of Grand Lake's biggest fears, because there's pretty much one way in, one way out. Not a lot of people are going to be taking the pass to Rocky Mountain National Park. And plus, the fire was coming from that way. So, no go there. And then the only way out, jam-packed with cars, you're not moving. And so, there was only one family, an elderly couple, who, I can't blame them, lived there their whole lives. They were a little bit stubborn. They're the only ones that had perished. Plus, they found a pile of moose, deer, mountain lions, elks, who just got confused and perished in the flames, and they found like a pile over 100 of them. And the fact that the house was leaning, the cabin was leaning, the insurance dropped us right before the fire happened. So talk about luck, but also talk about somebody being greedy to the point that, hey, look, you want to act like this, then I'm going to take it all away from you. And I'm a firm believer in things like that. Like, did I deserve that? Hell no. I mean, I didn't do anything. I left a Facebook post to my friends saying, hey, anybody who ever wants to come out, feel free to. And she thinks that her daughter's entitled to. And I love my nieces. My nieces are absolutely innocent in this. They are my world. And, my niece who went up there, she is the sweetest, young, beautiful woman you will ever meet. Like, she just is just naturally kind-hearted. And it wasn't her that acted like that. It was her mother. And, it's her mother, and I'm not talking bad about her, but she knows how her mom can be. And for her mom to think she had a say, like, oh, you had to go pick up a finger to move stuff in order to stay here. It's like, who the fuck do you think you're talking to? And that's a tone that I took. Then my eldest niece jumps in, and I fucked up. This is where it was my fault, because she very well knows that what her mom is doing is in the wrong, and she keeps on calling me out and putting me down. And, my eldest niece was like my little baby. I took her everywhere with me when she was a child. I took her to girl basketball games at high school, and my mom would work like the concession stands, to become a part of the community, school and all that. And I would just hold her there or put my headphones on her. I would pick her up from downstairs, because downstairs of our house is like another house, and she'd bring up her Barney blanket, her Barney dog. doll and her Barney video, and we watched that damn video about 1,000 times. And like her and I were like this inseparable. She was my baby, my everything before I had my daughter. And while she's sitting there sick enough for her mother, I'm running in my mind like, what have I ever done to you besides just show you nothing but love? And yes, that is your mother. That's the person who gave you life. You know, I'm just the uncle that you write messages to that you love so much, this and that. And you're really going against me and embarrassing me in front of, you know, my Facebook friends. And so I just went off and I called her, you know, listen here, fuck you, stupid fat ass. This is none of your... And I should have never, ever, ever have said that. You know, I'm the adult in this, even though she's 25 and she has 2 children. She might be older now. You know, she knew what was right and wrong. I knew what was right and wrong. And neither one of us took the time to really think things through. So, yeah, I just went off on that tangent. I can't even remember why. So let's get back to the Visine. Oh, it was about money and, you know, not really looking like you may have it, but, you know, that was my stepfather.
Would have had a will. An autopsy was done, and it did say it looked like a heart attack. He had heart disease. But the wait was still on for the toxicology report. A toxicology report that would say it with me now, he had tetrahydrozoline in his system, a shitload of it. Body cam showed that he had been bedridden for days, but it also showed Visine on a dresser on the other side of the bedroom. So he had been sucking it down, or it had been given to him. And the way he had been given quite a lot of it over a number of days. Not like one sip. In fact, maybe he'd even been given it 1 month before. Like a month before when he was sick, and he slept for 2 days, Visine will make you as sick as he was. So the toxicology report said tetrahydro thing probably killed him. So how did it get there? That was a question I put to Lana. As I said, he was bedridden. Visine was on the other side of the room.
We're sorry for your loss. You are by no means in any trouble. We just toxicology report came back. Right now, the death is suspicious in nature. You know, if you were a witness in this case for us, somehow or other there was a large amount of Visine in his system. So that's what we're trying to get to the bottom of.
Well, that's all. I know he put the Visine in his coffee. He puts it in there every day.
What do you know about it?
What do I know about it? I know it makes you have diarrhea.
Mind you, she's a nurse.
I didn't think Visine was anything that would be serious to your health.
How was your life, man?
Sometimes we would have fun and everything, and then sometimes, you know, I would be like on eggshells. Yeah, all the time I was on eggshells. Like everybody to think was perfect.
We all do.
He had a genius IQ, and he was known for being an affluent businessman, for mentoring kids, for helping people, for being the fun, like a guy, but that's not who he was.
I feel I'm painting a bad picture of him. He wasn't, you know, a monster. I feel like you guys are, you know, doing your job and you're, you know, wondering if I killed my husband, and I did not kill my husband.
Lana's tactic was to say, well, this guy was a bit of a shit. He was an abusive son of a gun. See, this is some of that kind of style bullshit. Oh, fuck, they're on to me. Whatever you think I did, he did worse to me.
Victim role.
I told you a little bit about Stephen, victim. It was worse than what I told you. He was verbally and physically abusive, and yell at me and call me names. His anger built up, you know. I would do something that would irritate him until the point where he would explode.
Okay.
My girlfriend at work told me, you want to get even with somebody, you know, put Visine in a drink, it'll cause diarrhea. When I saw that Visine on the table, it just came back to me, and I just took and squirted it.
And what did you squirt it into?
His water.
Into his water?
I just saw it and I was just so angry, and I just took and squirted it. I think that put the whole thing in.
Oh, wow.
The police left and went back to decide what to charge her with. The next day when they came back, they found notes on the door. Lana was in the bed. She had tried to kill herself. They managed to get to her in time and took her to the hospital where her stomach was pumped, and she was then arrested and charged with murder. Lana then took a plea deal and she was charged with manslaughter, not murder. And you know, she was saying she had, wait, what'd she say? She had just tried to make him shit himself, and she killed him. She was still lying then. She said she'd given him one dose to make him shit his pants, when he had clearly been bedridden for days. Like, one squirt of Visine won't kill you. You have to be, like, it takes quite a lot to poison him. You know, he had been taking it over, she'd been putting it in his drinks over the course of like a week, and she'd probably tried it a month before, tested it out.
I apologize about that, but I had like a little bit of sappiness on my fingers, and I touched the webcam earlier, and I could tell from my end that it was all like crappy, and so I just wiped it off. I didn't want to be doing that in the middle of the story.
See, and he recovered after a couple of days, and then she was like, alright, that was practice, this one's for real. Interesting. Well, we will just have to take her unbelievable word for it. She got 25 years in prison for that.
A tangled web we weave. Miss Clayton, you sure have tangled this one up. But you let him suffer for 3 days.
After finding out the Visine was the cause of death, I attempted to take my life as well. I couldn't live with the thought that he did such a terrible thing.
Don't you say you...
Now, much like I just told you the story of Lana Clayton, somebody else heard that story too, and he was inspired. Oh man, this guy is stupid as shit. In 2018, a woman named Stacy Hunsucker died. She had been poisoned with her old friend tetrahydrozoline. Nailed it. Now, allegedly, her husband Josh Hunsucker got the gosh darn idea from Lana Clayton. He'd heard about her story in the news and he was like, well, don't mind if I do. Gaston County, North Carolina is where this all went down, just on the other side of the border from York County. Wasn't even far away. Josh and Stacy were high school sweethearts living in Mount Holly. They had been married for 8 years and had 2 young daughters together. Josh a paramedic, Stacy a teacher. Josh was the one who found his wife. Found his wife 4 different ways, if you can believe that. Well, I mean, I found her like this way. Oh wait, no, I mean, one story was that he went outside the house to ensure the cars were locked, as there had been burglaries in the area. Another was he went outside to cut wood. Another just to burn some energy. And another was that he was working on his laptop with his back to his wife. Regardless, he didn't see what happened. One second she was fine, the next he found her slumped over on the couch and she was gone. After his wife Stacy's death, Josh collected about $250,000 in What happened though, and how this started kind of unfolding, was that Stacy's mom had it going on. She had something in her head, which was basically, this is weird as shit, and that there might be some kind of insurance bullshit going on. Stacy's mother believed that her son-in-law, I guess ex-son-in-law now, Josh, had been having an affair before Stacy died, and now his mistress was now...
Why don't people just leave one another? I mean, I've heard so many times like, oh, because of my religious beliefs. Okay, I get that. But, I mean, in the Bible, see, and this is a bad thing about religion, is that religion is man-made. You know, the Bible and how you follow it and interpret it, for instance... You know, the Quran never speaks of killing individuals. The Quran doesn't speak about committing acts of violence. You know, it's how one interprets it. And when you're getting a whole bunch of people like, yeah, that's awesome, you know, let's do this. You know, you have the power to control. And just like with the Bible, you know, kind of like the same thing, the way you interpret it. And, you know, if you think that separating, divorcing somebody, oh, that just goes against my religious beliefs, but I'll go ahead and kill the fucker. Like, that's better? I mean, okay, technically in God's eyes, sin is sin. Sin is, you're not more sinful for killing somebody than, you know, lying to somebody. There's only one unforgivable sin, and it's not suicide, but it's blasphemy against the Holy Spirit. It's the only unforgivable sin. I know a lot of people will beat themselves up over, you know, when one of their family members does something to them to harm themselves, but no, it's blasphemy against the Holy Spirit, and that is the only unforgivable sin. So yeah, let me get back to this. I just wanted to describe that.
Now, his girlfriend. She would be right in believing that, by the way. He had been having an affair. This new chick moved into his home that he had shared with his now deceased wife, like, within a couple of months. In fact, Josh's coworkers would say he moved on pretty quickly and was like, shit happens. Now, Josh, he had Stacy cremated, like, immediately after her funeral, right away. Right, so investigating how she actually died would be pretty difficult, right? But get a load of this. Stacy just so happened to have been an organ donor, and blood samples were taken from her after her death, and they still had those blood samples even though she was ash. The investigators were then still able to do a toxicology report, and guess what? In her blood, you'll never believe this, was a fatal amount of Visine.
A North Carolina paramedic whose wife died of what was thought to be a heart attack is now charged with her murder. Prosecutors in Gaston County say Joshua Hunsucker poisoned the mother of his children using eye drops. Family and friends grew suspicious after Stacy Hunsucker's death last September. The victim's mother claimed insurance fraud after Hunsucker cashed in his wife's $250,000 life insurance policies and refused to allow an autopsy. Co-workers also expressed concerns about how quickly he moved on with a new girlfriend.
The complaint alleges Hunsucker murdered his wife so he could collect that money and be with his mistress. The family claims Hunsucker was inspired to weaponize eye drops after a similar case last year in York County, South Carolina, where a woman was accused of murdering her husband with over-the-counter eye drops.
Josh was arrested and charged with first-degree murder in December 2019. His trial has not been scheduled. He's also got a little bit more trouble than that, though. He's got a wrongful death suit from Stacy's family. He was also indicted for insurance fraud, and in 2019 he set fire to a syringe pump while inside a medical helicopter during flight.
It was just after midnight when this radio transmission came through.
Hey, do you have any calls reference like a helicopter landing on the side of Independence Boulevard?
It was one of Atrium Health's Med Center Air helicopters. One of the crew members, flight paramedic Joshua Hunsucker.
Looks like it's landed over here for some reason.
That reason, we're now learning, according to CMPD, Hunsucker set fire to a syringe pump while the helicopter was mid-flight. No one was injured.
They had to make an emergency landing and he was placed on administrative leave. That's another felony. Why a paramedic would set medical equipment on fire inside a helicopter while it was in the air, I don't know. And here's another one. Alright, okay, and first off I have to say, we gotta fucking ban eye drops in South Carolina. Let's be safe, let's just say both Carolinas, because it's pissing everybody off, as you can tell. 2 security guards in Hilton Head, South Carolina, allegedly tried to poison their supervisor. Hunter Howard and Andrew Dottie put eye drops in their boss's coffee. Now, the supervisor didn't drink it. I assume someone saw and stopped him from drinking it. And not a whole lot is out there about this one. Maybe they just fucking hated their jobs, or they thought it would be pretty funny. Or maybe their supervisor is just a dickhead. Who am I to judge? And finally, we have Jesse Rose Kerchevsky? what? Jesse Polish surname. Thankfully, it's not Carolina, this one, it's Wisconsin. Knocking you out of the park. There, Jesse, 36 years old, is accused of using eye drops, those dirty dogs with the titty-hitty drozzy, to poison and kill her friend, Lynn Hernan. What happened? Well, I hear you barking, big dog. It went down like this. See, 64-year-old Lynn was found dead in October 2018. Jesse had found her and called the police, and when the police arrived, they found Lynn pale, unconscious, and surrounded by crushed up medication. She died shortly after. Crushed up powder? Devil's dandruff, dare I say? Well, whatever it was medication, and looks like a drug overdose, you guys. Case closed. Technically, it is a drug overdose, actually. Jesse had been caring for Lynn, and she said, well, she said she was, you know, a little bit suicidal. She'd been talking about it for a couple of days. She'd been a little bit weird lately, so I guess she just friggin' went ahead and did it. Others who knew Lynn, though, said, that doesn't sound right. Later, Jesse and her mother, Jennifer Flowers, were found to be driving Lynn's Jeep. A Jeep Lynn had promised to her nephew, Lynn's nephew. They were also living in Lynn's house. Interesting. A close friend of Lynn's was the one to call the police and be like, yeah, she wasn't suicidal, and maybe you should look at the mother-daughter situation we got going on here. They essentially inserted themselves into Lynn's life. It also appeared that Lynn had left everything in her will to Jesse.
Of course.
Jesse, the police learned, who had a history of forgery and fraud convictions. She had created bank accounts in other people's names, tried to pay hotel bills with fake checks, gotten a loan for a car in her mother's name, and had a gambling addiction, an addiction she financed via fraudulent loans. Lynn then was later found to have a fatal dose of tetrahydrozoline in her system. Her manner of death was changed from suicide to homicide. Jesse, in the meantime, by the way, before this came out, was calling the medical examiner's office all the time, being like, wanna maybe fill me in? Jesse told everyone, her boyfriend even, that she was pretty much a full-time carer for Lynn, when in reality, she would go over a couple of times a month and just smoke cigarettes. She also had been stealing money from Lynn. So things became pretty clear. But when interviewed, Jesse told police that yeah, Lynn took eye drops all the time. That was her thing. That's why there was so much tetrahydrozoline in her system. She was just mad about eye drops. Cops retorted with, well, you're not going to have that much in your blood just by squirting it in your eyes. But then she was like, oh wait, yeah, actually I have seen Lynn drink Visine. Now that you mention it, if you can only have that much in your system by drinking it. Yeah, definitely seen her drinking it. In fact, the day before she died, she was having Visine and vodka cocktails. Delicious. Also, Jesse had to explain to the police that any money she spent that was Lynn's, Lynn had given her consent to do so. Lynn had basically given Jesse a credit card and was like, here, here's your payment for looking after me. The cops didn't believe that at all. Of course, Jesse kept going on with, well, Lynn talked about killing herself all the time, so I guess she just went ahead and had enough. Again, like third time lucky, the police did not believe that. The financial records showed that, well, Jesse was allegedly using Lynn's bank accounts like her own piggy banks to the tune of almost $300,000. About $130,000 of that was transferred directly to Jesse herself. So Lynn was quite a wealthy woman, and when she died, she was over 70 grand in debt. In June 2021, Jesse was charged with first-degree intentional homicide. No trial date set as of yet.
37-year-old Jesse Kirkzewski appeared in Waukesha County Court Monday facing 3 charges, including first-degree intentional homicide.
The state believes this defendant has evidenced her capacity to take advantage of at-risk individuals and poses a risk to the public, both through her financial victimization and ultimately violent behavior toward victim A in this case.
And there you have it, folks. A number of stories of people being poisoned and murdered. Good old Visine. Get the red out, get the dead out. Come on now. People are just mad to use it. But then again, in a lot of other stories I've covered, people used antifreeze instead. I think that one might be a little bit... They're both actually equally horrific. Both sound like incredibly painful ways to go. Some people who almost got away with it. Others who thought it was just a prank, bro. And others who were maybe just a little bit pissed off. And then whatever Jesse was. Mad for the money, that's what. Don't get any ideas, folks. Remember, right? Visine only for the eyezine. Eye drops, not drops dead. Just be a little bitch. Like me, who can't use eye drops because it freaks them out too much. Ah, it stuck. It actually got in my mouth. Oh, fuck.
You guys go over there and show Mike some love, man. He is one of the funniest, one of the best YouTube content creators that's out there. Let's get him over a fucking million freaking views on each show. You know, he just has now 1.65 million subscribers. So let's yeah, go support him. I'm gonna copy the link and share it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm definitely not gonna do what I learned from Wedding Crashers. Never been stuck in that position, and now I definitely know never to put myself in that position. So for the time being, I thank you guys for joining me, and yeah, I'll be pushing out some videos and some songs tonight. So yeah, just stick with me here, and yeah, we'll be doing some more. So thank you.